Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Unstoppable. My name is Kerwin Rae, your host, and today we talk endurance with Lisa Tamati. Lisa is an endurance athlete and ultra marathon runner. This lady's incredible. In 2009, she ran 217 kilometers across one of the hottest deserts on earth called Death Valley. She has run through the Sahara, the Arabian, the Gobi, and the Libyan deserts, and I'm talking illegally, including the Australian outback. If you're wanting to learn how to develop grit, if you want to learn how to develop resilience, this is going to be the podcast for you. Listen up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when the podcast Unstoppable was created, it was about interviewing people who literally have overcome some of the most incredible obstacles in their life. And today is absolutely no exception. I'm super excited to have in the studio today Lisa Tamati. Did I get that right?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Tamati. The Aussies say Tamati, but we say Tamati.
Tamati, there we go. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's an absolute honour to be here, mate. It's
honestly,
awesome.
when I read more about your story, which we're going to get into today, I was like, literally, it was like, as we're going through the preview, it was like, first point, wow. Second point, wow. Third point, wow. 17 points later, I'm sitting there going, wow, maybe you should be running the podcast and not me.
No, I'm just a very average person.
I would say that is an absolute that's your humility coming through. But for those of you who perhaps don't know who you are from your professional and your athletic exploits, give us a little bit of a snapshot on who Lisa Tamati is.
Yeah, so I'm an ultra marathon runner first and foremost, probably. That was what I'm known for, at least. So I've been doing that for about 25 years, I suppose, which just shows how old I am, really. And
you don't look a day over 31.
Oh, thanks, mate. I'm 50, so it's getting harder to keep it together.
Clearly, running works.
But so in that time, I've run over 70,000 kilometres, which is like 3 times around the equator.
The equator is around the Earth.
Yeah, yes. The equivalent of in bits and pieces. So I've done lots in the Sahara. So I've done about 2,000 k's in the different parts. So the Moroccan twice, the Arabian, the Libyan desert, Niger, Jordan, the Gobi Desert in China, Death Valley in the USA a couple of times, different parts of your beautiful country out here in Australia.
Now, you did Death Valley 217 k's non-stop, is that right?
Yeah, so that's a race,
right.
And this is like a bit like Kona is for the triathletes.
Okay.
It's sort of the world number one race for the ultramarathoners in the world. And the hard thing with that one is, I mean, it's 217 k's, but it's in temperatures up to 57 degrees. It's the hottest place on
Holy
Earth
smokes.
In the middle of summer. So that's where the brutality comes in. And you've got a couple of mountains to climb in the middle of it.
You also illegally ran through the Libyan desert, is that right?
I didn't run. I walked that one.
Did you? Trying not to get shot at?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this was a long time ago now. And that was the first sort of big desert one that I did. And it was an expedition, 4 of us, so me and 3 other guys, and it was totally illegal, weren't allowed to be there, had to sort of sneak off into the desert in the dark of night and try and not get caught by the military, because you can imagine what would have happened there.
Yeah.
And this was back in 97. And at the time I was boyfriend with one of the guys, and he decided to have a big domestic with me in the middle of the Libyan desert 3 days in. And the hardest thing with this was we had to carry everything on our backs, like the entire water supply. So I had 35 kilos, the guys had between 40 and 45 kilos on their back, and I only weighed like 57 kilos or something at the time. So that was 2/3 of my body weight. So trying to walk with 35 kilos when you're dehydrated to the max, because you only had 2 litres of water a day. So 2 litres in those sort of 40-degree temperatures was absolutely nuts. If I think back, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? But that nearly killed me. It did do some permanent damage to my kidneys and things like that. The boyfriend left me on day 4. 5-year relationship, man.
He left you on day 4. How do you leave someone in the middle of the desert? Walking 20 metres in front?
He was pissed off because I wasn't helping him do the photography.
Right.
And I couldn't, man. I was just like on the absolute limits of, just walking
survival.
Upright. Yeah. And this is the type of bloke he was, though. Real hard ass, like drill sergeant times 10. And so he said, right, that's it, I'm leaving after a big domestic in the middle of the Libyan desert.
Did he leave you in the desert?
Yeah, with the other blokes.
Right.
So he went off on his own. But we didn't know whether he'd survive, because it was, it was pretty critical.
That's like, mate.
It was a turning point in my life, Kerwin, when I said,
put your toys back in, son. This is not the place to do it.
This was not the place. After that, I thought, Because it had been an abusive relationship.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
let's be honest with you. It was a 5-year-long relationship, and he was very controlling. Everything was, and at that stage, he was my first love, and,
I get it.
he looked like Brad Pitt, so that helped.
Love is blind. Well,
Love,
apparently not. So what age were you when you got into endurance athlete? Became an endurance athlete?
I didn't get into the racing until after that. So I'd spent already 5 years with him doing sort of biking around the world, like doing cycle touring around the world.
So you just did it for shits and giggles?
Yeah. It was just an adventure life. I was young and,
And so when you're just doing these little
adventure.
cycling tours, how long were these little cycling tours?
They'd be like 2,000-3,000 kilometres a go, and then we'd go and make a bit of money.
So we'll just have a little ride. Timmy, you and me, we'll go on Sunday, we'll have a little ride. We'll do 2,000 or 3,000 kilometres. And,
in bits,
in bits. Yeah, in chunks of like 500k.
Sort of, 100k, 150k a day, but with your
right.
packs on and sightseeing and just living the life of a young person and having a ball.
Well, certainly not the average life of a young person. What is it that drew you to that? Because when you talk about, even doing 3,000 Ks in bits and pieces, when you talk about doing, the ultra marathons that you've done, that's not a standard psychology. It doesn't.
Nah.
It requires special upgrades in order to be able to perform at that level.
Well, anybody can do it. I have absolutely no talent.
Well, I challenge with that because when you look, I'm quite fascinated by performance at very high levels. I've done work with a range of different people and professionals, but there's one group that has really kind of changed my psychology on can everybody do it?
Yeah,
and that's the Navy SEALs as an example. And
yeah,
they have this training called BUDS.
Yep,
where they have an 80% fallout rate, only 20% get through. And numerous times they've looked at their psychometric, demographic, geographic, biological profiling to try and increase that 20% graduate rate because it's a very expensive program to run. And with everything they do, they still discover that no matter what to do and no matter how they profile, it's still an 80% burnout rate of people who get through. And so they say, well, no, not everybody can be a Navy SEAL. It takes a special kind of person. And I would go as far as to say, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, it's easy to say, anyone can be an ultramarathon runner. But when you look in the gym, as an example, there are some people that know how to train, and there are others that just love to socialize.
Yeah.
And their psychology, their body or their brain's interpretation of pain is not one of, this feels good. It's what the hell? This is not good for me. I've got to stop. What was it that attracted you to this level of gruel?
Well, I certainly didn't grow up thinking I was going to be an ultramarathon runner. That's not, you don't leave school and go, I'm going to be a this or that.
Did you do sports during school?
I was a very athletic kid. I grew up in a family, my dad was a hard ass. And he wanted us to represent New Zealand. He wanted us to be the best at sport. And that's it, where he wanted. If I was a girl, unfortunately, because he wanted me to be an All Black, and I couldn't be that back then. The girls didn't play rugby, so that was such a disappointment to him.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah. So then I was a gymnast as a kid,
right?
And I was really good up until I got puberty, and then I grew up too tall, too big,
right,
and not the right shape and size for a gymnast who have to be pretty small. And Dad was devastated because I was that close to, if you like, well, he thought I was representing New Zealand. I knew I didn't have what it took in that sport because I was just too tall and too athletic, and I had curves and I had, but that created a real problem in my head because I'd failed my dad, who I idolised and wanted to be, please him, as young girls do. And so then I went into surfing and, I was used to pushing, he did not tolerate weakness. Right. He did not tolerate, he was take a teaspoon of concrete and harden up type bloke.
Right.
And so that mentality, and then I met this boyfriend, the one that left me in the Libyan desert, and he was exactly the same. So maybe I was looking for some
they say
dad
we marry
replacement.
Our parents.
Well, yeah, something like that. I've definitely worked through that one now.
Good, healthy.
Yeah, but so I think that influence was, I wanted to prove something. In the beginning, I was there to prove my dad wrong, or to prove the boyfriend that I could do it, because he would tell me all the time I was useless, I could never do anything. I was an asthmatic since I was a little kid. So I had a very small lung capacity. And when I say anybody can do this, physically anybody can.
That is agreeable.
Yeah. I've seen people with no legs running across the Sahara. I've been people who are blind running across. So I've seen, people with hips replacement, people with broken back. So it is up here, but it is that part that you can't probably predict.
Yep.
Is that mental side, and I know that the guys in the Navy SEALs will tell you too, that they weren't the best athlete probably in their class. They weren't the most talented. They were all round pretty good at everything.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's the same with this, and you have to have that mentality as if I'm not going to quit no matter what. And I would always use the analogy of, like, when I'm in the middle of a really grueling race and I just want to die, which, is happening,
which is every
second of every race,
Yep.
pretty much. After 50 Ks, you're all knackered. Then I would think things like silly stories like, okay, you've just crashed in a plane with your mum in the middle of the jungle and you've got to run 200 Ks to save her life. What would you do?
So that's where you would go. That's where you'd take yourself.
That's where I'd take my brain. In other words, if my mum's life depended on it,
Yep.
would I make it? Well, then you can make it, And because you galvanise and you let free that power when you start to visualise like that, you pull out things from you that you wouldn't in your normal daily life. And so when you're doing these races, you are not your normal everyday Lisa, who's, just average Joe. When you're in a race, you're a warrior. You go into battle. You put on your battle armour. When that number goes on, I'm a different person. And I'm focused solely on this one outcome. And when the doubts come, and they come, and you've got this massive battle, like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, and the angel's telling you, you keep going, you can do it, you're going to make it, and the devil's getting louder, telling you can't. What the hell are you doing this for? And what are you trying to prove? And why don't you just sit down for 5 minutes? And all of this sort of negativity. And it's the battle. How long can you push through the torture for? How long can you fight that battle and overcome to get to the end goal?
What do you think is the key? Like, if you were to look at one aspect of the psychology, whether it be yours or other ultra endurance athletes, what is that one thing that makes the difference?
We've all got mental health issues.
No shit.
No shit. No, I mean in a serious way, that we've all got something that we're really angry about, or that we really want to prove something,
right,
or we really have issues with our self-confidence, or something is there that's driving this incredible, and it's releasing this force within you that you can overcome things.
Wow.
And I think when I started to lose my hunger for beating the crap out of myself, if you like, because it is a lot of torture sometimes, that's when you start to lose the edge, because you don't have that hunger, you know.
Right.
And I've noticed in the last couple of years, and I'll get into that story a little bit later, why, but I haven't got that hunger anymore in that area. Now it's focused fully on the business side of things, which it's still there, but it's not.
What's funny, as you were describing the gruel of the endurance race, it was almost like you're describing the journey of an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've been an entrepreneur since the age of 18 as well.
Yep, not as successful as you, mate. But
we're all in the same game.
Oh, I could never be put in a box.
Yep.
I cannot work under someone, some corporate box. It just kills me. I tried to work for an insurance company out of school. I nearly died. I was sick physically every day. I hated it.
Yeah, right.
Being held in. And I just wanted to be in charge of my own destiny, and I still want to be in charge, and that's been an up rocky, all over the place ride. But that's seen me do things like, documentary production, to TV shows, to hyperbaric oxygen therapy clinics, to jewelry manufacturing, I've been
You've
everywhere.
done quite a bit.
Yeah. And some successfully and some completely not. Now my focus is really on that.
How much has your athletic experience prepared you or made you a better entrepreneur when it comes to the psychology of it?
This is something like I've been a speaker for the last 13 years as well, and this is what I talk about. There is just absolute one-to-one parallels between being an entrepreneur and being in success in life and success in sport. They are all parallel because it's the same mindset.
Yep.
It might be a different arena that you're playing in, but it's the same principles and the same mindset, and you have to have that willingness to fail and fail fast and just keep going and
and be able to deal with that pain.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with pain? Like, because some people look at pain, like I think of people that I've known who trained before, and they whether they do any kind of exercise, whether it be yoga or they lift a weight, the moment it starts to hurt, their body, their relationship with pain is, oh my God, this is bad.
Yeah.
And they like, oh my God, I have to stop immediately.
Yep.
other people, they don't necessarily have that same relationship. What's your relationship with pain?
Yeah, I don't like pain. I'm not masochistic in tendencies, but I understand the value of going through pain in order to get. There is no strength without the struggle. You don't get stronger if there's not a resistance to you get, like weights or a resistance training or, doing karate or doing whatever. It's all about fighting through what's hard, because then your body changes. But not only your body changes, your mind. And your mind gets able to handle more pain the more you do it. So the more pain you put yourself through, the more that you can cope with it, if you like, and for the longer.
So something I find curious is some of the most successful entrepreneurs have either been athletes or they express their passion in some form of athleticism. Is that part of your, like, when you're working with other people? Because I know you do a lot of coaching with people as well. When you're working with a client, is that something you work on? Their ability to be able to physically endure pain through some form of physical expression? Yeah, I mean, I
mostly do coach athletes, so runners and body transformation as well.
Okay.
So it is, the thing I can't teach them is, I can teach them the mental skills and the skill sets, but they have to experience themselves and they have to take ownership over it. They have to be willing to go through the crap. And I'm so lucky that I have amazing people that I get to work with who do incredible things, Our head coach at our company, who we've trained for years, is just doing a challenge at the moment, 12 ultras in 12 months, over 100 kilometres.
Wow.
Destroying his body completely. In the last couple of weeks, he's had some failures. And for me, he's left, he had a broken leg at 30 Ks last week. And he ran to 156 of the 160. And then before his body went into shock and he collapsed and they had to take him out at 4Ks before the end. But that's the type of people that you get to work with. I've had a mate of mine, we were running 24-hour races for the national team in England. His leg broke, and they had to literally drag him off and say, you cannot carry on. He was trying to run with a broken leg.
It's funny because people would be listening to this going, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it is.
But they'll go, why would you do that? But when you compare an entrepreneur in a similar space, sometimes it's very similar. They may not have a broken leg. They may just have a broken pen. But sometimes it's like trying to drag someone off a racetrack when they're doing what it is that they love. But one of the things that I'm noticing with you is you don't. It's not that you like the pain, but you've got this ability to deal with it.
Yep.
The Navy SEALs, they identified that trait as grit. Grit is as a form of resilience, but the way that they define it is the ability to suffer without withdrawal. So what I'm curious to know from you is when you're working with someone, because again, I want to make this as practical as possible, whether it be in the athletic space, endurance space, or in the entrepreneurial space, what are some of the exercises that you can do with people in order to harden them up, in order to build a level of resilience or build a level of grit? Because one of the things that I've observed is some people either have it or they don't.
Yeah.
Okay, and the people that have it, fantastic, I'll hire them on the spot, right?
Yeah.
Or I'll work with them on the spot. The people who don't, they often sit there left there going, well, okay, I don't have this ability to suffer. I hate pain. I don't like to fail. How do I change? How do I develop that skill?
And that's a hard one because, obviously you and I both probably pick the one who has got the grit over the person who has maybe the talent.
Yep.
Would rather work with someone who's got to fight for it.
Absolutely.
And I prefer that.
Yes.
But obviously a lot of people don't.
No.
And I don't really have an answer for that because you have to, you can work with someone and you can try and it will take time. Yep. That you start to get to open their mind up to the possibilities of what they can do.
Do you think the body is the conduit to develop grit?
Yep, I do. I think it goes hand in hand.
Because you can get someone to do math problems all day long. They're like, I'm getting a headache.
Yeah.
But it's not until someone experiences physical pain that they can push through, that they really learn their own potential limitations.
Yeah. And you know what makes me so sad when I see people who are young people who perhaps are overweight or they've never done any sport in their lives. They're stuck behind a computer or whatever, and they don't understand the power that lies within their body. But before they get old, let's explore what this body can do before, and then they get old and they never knew what they missed out on. They never knew what their body was capable of doing. And we've all got a use-by date on us. But if you've experienced the power of your body, and what it can do, then your mind is blown as to what you can achieve anywhere.
That's actually quite profound. Like, because when you think about it, there is a whole generation of human beings that are coming through right now that have no connection between what their own physical potential is and what they're actually doing in terms of sitting behind a computer every day. That's quite
scares
profound.
the crap out of me.
Wow. It's the first time I've actually considered it in that way. It's like, wow, that's a lot of potential that is going completely unrealized.
Yep.
Life hasn't been an easy journey for you. You know, you've touched on a few things already. You've had your own battles with mental illness. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, back in the days when the Libyan desert times and going through that abusive relationship where I slowly lost the power over everything I did and everything was controlled. And then when I broke up with that person, I had nothing. I had no self-esteem, no confidence, and running is what rebuilt my life, basically. Right. That's why I think I ran so long, because it was like I'm just running, because it
was therapy?
The physical pain alleviates the mental pain briefly. And I've seen this in lots of other ultramarathons. When you're in a physical pain, you're totally focused on that and the challenge, and you're not focused on the depression, the sadness, the brokenness of you. And it starts to slowly rebuild you over a period of time. And it becomes a positive addiction, if you like.
Well, it's cathartic, right? It's quite healing.
It is. Yeah. Going through that physical pain can be quite cathartic and healing, as well as empowering. And then somewhere along the career, it shifted into no longer wanting to prove anything to any particular person, but wanting to do good with the skill set that I had. So it goes into doing things for charities and, running. I ran through New Zealand at one stage for Cure Kids in Canteen and, kids with cancer and stuff.
Do you remember the moment that there was that shift where you went from trying to be, prove something to the world to, hang on, I've got nothing to prove anymore. I've actually, through this process, I've actually healed my mind in so many ways. Now I can do this for a higher purpose. Like, do you remember what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, it's only probably 8 years ago, I'd say, that really that shift happened. I'd gone through a divorce when I was 38, so I was married to an Austrian, and I lived in Austria for 13 years, and he was an ultramarathon runner too, and my marriage broke up, and won't go into the details of that crap, but I lost everything. I lost my house, my business, my country that I was living in. Came back home to mummy and daddy's, with my tail between my legs at 38 with no money, no life, no kids, no nothing. And I felt like I'd been a complete failure. And that's when I decided to run through Death Valley. And because I was, working through shit.
Yeah, right.
And
is that what you do? Is that your go-to place now? Yes. Like when you've got shit going on, okay.
Got to go for a run.
I've got stuff going on in my life. I need to do a bit of a run. But your run isn't, I'm just going to go run down the block. I'm just going to run across fucking Death Valley or the Sahara or the Himalayas.
Back then it was. Now it's more around the block and go to the gym and hit some weights. I'm into the weight training and
but I guess losing your marriage for 13 years, that's
over there for 13. It was heartbreaking because I loved him, I was just like completely out of the blue and it broke me. And at 38, you should have your shit together, and that thing is like...
Thanks, I'm 44, I'm still fucking working it out. But
tell me about it.
You and me both, right?
Yeah, we certainly either, you haven't arrived.
Yeah, I know, you never do.
You never arrive, it's a myth.
There's lots of false flags.
Yeah. And then I spent years with self-esteem issues as you're a woman, hitting nearly 40, you've got no partner, who the hell are you? You're useless, you're ugly, you're a fat reject, And that sort of a mindset's going on in your head. And running is one way that got me out of that, and I did Death Valley. That was a huge success for me. Then I had my books come out and I slowly...
Was that quite a turning point for you?
Massive. And I'm so glad I went through that. Don't want to go there again, but I'm glad I went through it because it forced me to become an individual. It forced me, I just wish if I could go back to my younger self, say, off those guys and just focus on being self-confident, being who you are, instead of searching for that other half to fulfill you,
It's so funny that so many people spend so much of their life in relationships trying to find themselves when in reality it's not until we spend a decent period
amount of time
by
alone.
Ourselves.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of Ultra, isn't it?
Yeah.
You really are forced to face your demons.
You're confronted with who you are, your character.
It's like a running meditation.
Yep.
So it's like it's not just sitting there in the meditation in the mind. You've also got your brain screaming as well.
Like I know you're a big fan of meditation, and I physically can't sit still for 5 minutes. So my meditation is running or
Yeah.
is doing some sort of a sport, I get into a meditative state there for a while, especially with running. And I think that's so meditation doesn't have to be in a silence, sitting in a room somewhere. It can also be like that. And you do sometimes, when ultramarathons, get into that transcendent state for brief periods, and you come back out of them, unfortunately.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I do a lot of. I've got a huge interest in transcendent state, altered consciousness, and I've heard about a lot of runners that reach that point of, it's almost like beyond the runner's high, where it is transcendent, and there's almost like this higher connection with this higher being or this higher force or this divine energy. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I have experienced it. But the thing is, like, people have this misconception that you're in that space the whole time. Well, you're not. You might get there for brief periods of a couple of hours if you're lucky, and you're sort of in this zone where you're like, I can do anything and achieve anything, and I'm connected. And then you come crashing back down to earth, and it's like, again,
I want to get back. Take me back. What does it feel like? And did you have a way to access it whilst you were running, or is it something that just happened?
I've never been able to get the formula right where you can tap into that state, unfortunately. It's something that comes...
But did you and other runners used to sit around and talk about it?
Yeah, we would talk about that sort of thing. And it would typically happen when you've gone beyond, the limits of what you ever thought possible. And in those moments where you're still going and you suddenly realise, hey, I'm in this other space, you do get, of course, you get things like hallucinations as well. So whether it's your brain's actually shutting down or something, and you just think you're all super duper and connected. I know I've had friends who are, talking to their dead loved ones and stuff, because they're in you're a space cadet a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because the sharp many different cultures have used everything from sweat lodges, psychedelics, different plant medicines in order to induce those states, in order to have those mystical experiences. But it was interesting when I was reading about in the book called Stealing Fire.
I've read it.
Really interesting book. They were talking about aspects of performance where runners were having these runners' highs, and they were having a psychedelic like transcendent experience where they were hallucinating, they were talking to dead loved ones, they were having these contact and communication with beings.
Yeah, and the doctors will explain that, that you run out of glycogen, your brain's fried, and you have sleep deprivation, and, all of those sort of things. And that's probably physically, on a physical level, true.
Yeah.
But it's you do sort of, you come back changed, you come back altered from these sort of things. And like...
Altered better?
Yeah, well... Often you come back from a big event, and this is what I tell my athletes too, is don't get divorced, don't have a baby, don't start taking drugs, don't do anything stupid in that week when you come back from a big event, because you're in an altered state of mind.
Yeah.
And you're liable to do something. You usually come back to your office job or whatever, and you're like, what the hell? Where the hell, this doesn't make sense anymore.
Wow. Don't make any big decisions.
Don't make any decisions, because you're in this weird place of, I've just been through something epic.
Yeah.
And nobody gets it. And my wife doesn't get it, my husband doesn't get it, my kids don't get it, nobody gets me. And so you get this, and then you get a depression often because you've taken all the serotonin and everything's, emptied your body out of hormones. And so if you know that as a coach, you can, help them ride that out. Didn't know that back in the day.
The reason it's so fascinating, because Stealing Fire put me onto a whole range of different books to study psychedelic therapy in terms of performance and, therapeutic treatment. And, with some of the books that I read, I don't know if you've got any interest in psychedelics, but there's a book by a guy called Dr. James Fadiman where he talks about the entheogenic process that they used LSD for back in the 40s, 50s and 60s in order to heal, all sorts of psychological issues.
I have read a bit about that.
And the same, but again, they would basically deliver a substance in a controlled environment, take them on a transcendent mystical experience, but when they came back, their first piece of advice was, don't make any big decisions for the first 30 days.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
Because you are in an altered state of consciousness. You've had an entheogenic, life-altering, cathartic, healing, as well as mind-expanding experience. Just allow the integration to take place in the next 30 days, but don't make any big decisions. And so when you said that, I was like, holy crap, you've worked that out on the other level.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. I have to start reading about that.
Honestly, I think, because I think a lot of attention's given to cannabis for a whole range of great reasons, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But when you actually start to look at the research into psychedelics when it comes to the treatment of a range of different, mental health issues, but also from the microdosing perspective from performance, as it alludes to in Stealing Fire, not just at the professional, not just at the athletic level, but at the, at the executive level, and in some cases, in general performance. It's absolutely quite fascinating to see, what's coming out of it. I think it's the next revival.
And allowing this, they've got to allow these studies. They've got to give them a chance to.
What I find interesting about psychedelics, it is literally one of the most studied substances on the planet. And there's, hundreds, if not thousands, of research papers been published by Harvard, Stanford, and some of the top universities around the world, where they've proven unequivocally their therapeutical benefit.
Wow. But
because it became so mainstream, because of the likes of the guys like Tim Leary, who were a little bit cowboy-like, they actually suppress it. And I have a theory, actually. I haven't spoken about this before. What they were discovering, there were some psychotherapists that were discovering they would take a client on one entheogenic journey, and they were having full recovery.
Wow.
And these were, in some cases...
Maybe I need that.
Well, these were, in some cases, patients who had been under therapy for as long as a decade.
Wow.
So you've got to understand that could be quite challenging to the medical community, where they've got this programmatic therapeutic model where you have to keep coming back and pay your $200 every month.
Don't get me started. We'll go there in a minute.
Yeah. Versus you come in, you have a 12-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour entheogenic journey. There's a high probability you come out healed. Yeah, that's not only going to fuck with the therapeutic model. It's also going to fuck with the pharmacological model as well. But anyway, that's going to make a few heads spin.
If we're allowed to go down that track, I'd like to talk about a journey that I've been on the last 3 years with my mum. So anyone who knows me knows that me and my mum are like this. We're very close.
Peas and carrots?
Yeah, she's been my rock through all the shit that I've thrown at her over the years. You can imagine having a daughter that does stupid shit. What that's like. And 3 years ago, she had an aneurysm, which is a massive bleed in the brain.
Yeah.
And we had one medical balls up after the other. And I'm writing a book about this journey because I want not to throw rocks at anyone in particular, but I want to highlight some major flaws in our system and also show the path forward. So Mum, when she was taken up to the emergency department, they said, she's got a migraine. So they ignored the fact that she was, the ambulance driver had said stroke or CVA or something like that. Ignored him. 6 hours we were in there. She had another aneurysm in front of the doctor's eyes. He still ignored us. I ended up getting a mate of mine who's an ultramarathon runner and a paramedic. She came up and I said, they're not listening to me. Get me help. And she came up and took one look at Mum, and she knows that she's not a neurotic old lady who complains about everything. She knew she was in deep shit because Mum would die quietly. That's Mum.
Wow.
And so she managed to convince this doctor to get a CT scan and came back blood right throughout the brain. And so then we were on this massive journey of she could die at any minute. We had to get her down to Wellington, air ambulance, so on. So 18 hours before she got into surgery. The upshot of it was she was in and out of a coma for 3 weeks, majorly critical. That's when my life changed on a dime. That's when I stopped doing ultramarathons pretty much at that point. And, I was focused on her. And what I saw in the medical world really gave me, there were amazing surgeons, did amazing things. But she should have been in ICU from the start. It's all about money. And when you're an older adult, they don't give a shit, basically. After 65, it's like, oh, well, if they die, it's fine. It's not fine. Anyway, she was left after 3 weeks. She came out of the coma. She stabilised, but she was pretty much gone. She was not much over a vegetative stage. She had a couple of words. She had no memory. She didn't know I was a daughter. She couldn't control any body functions. She couldn't, push a button. She was completely like a baby in a woman's body, and they said, look, she's not going to live very long. You have to put her in a rest home. She was in hospital for 2 months. I had battle after battle with them. I picked up things like that she had sleep apnea. I brought in outside consultants because I was just study, finding a way. And I'd had a lot of experience at altitude, so I knew what oxygen deprivation did, and she was exhibiting signs to me that she was. And so I picked up she had sleep apnea, brought in an outside consultant, came back severe sleep apnea, wasn't breathing at night, knocking off whatever brain cells she had.
Yep.
So then she started to have little bits of recovery. And then I went, okay, so oxygen, what else can oxygen do? And then I discovered hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is being used right around the world for a whole plethora of things, but it's used for brain damage overseas, but not in New Zealand. I studied under a Dr. Hart for 4 months. I read everything. I designed protocols, and then I had to get her access to a hyperbaric chamber. Well, they don't grow on trees. But I found a commercial dive company that would let me access their chamber. And so when she was led out of the hospital, that was a battle in itself, because they said you have to put her in a rest home, hospital level care, 2 people around the clock. You're never ever going to cope. And the social worker, said you're going to fail and something. I took my books into him. I threw them at him and said, "This is who I am, and I'm not giving up my mum, and I'm not putting her in a home. You better freaking give me the caregivers that I need." He wouldn't listen, and so I got my brother, who looks like The Rock. He's huge. He came in, he scared the crap out of this guy. We got the caregivers that we needed. We got the resources, and I don't approve of that, but hey, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. So that's, as far as my family's concerned, is whatever it takes. So I managed to get her home with some caregivers in the morning and the evening, changes to the home, etc. I took her down to this hyperbaric chamber in this commercial dive company. And these wonderful people gave us access. They gave me a hyperbaric technician 2 hours a day.
Wow.
And I put her in there, a huge risk, but I got sign-off from her neurosurgeon. No other doctor would give me sign-off, but he said, "You've got nothing to lose. She's not going to be here long if you don't, so give it a go." Did 33 treatments with it, and then the chamber had to be taken offshore for a contract. But in that 33, she started to wake up and come back.
Wow.
And so then I went, okay, now I've got to mortgage the house. I've got to buy a chamber. So I did that.
I love the way you work.
I bought a chamber. I installed it in the house. So I worked out the protocol for her. And then I would put her in there every day, which was a huge job because she couldn't move anything. And I spent hours every day just moving her body, trying to keep it mobile while she couldn't control anything. And then she started to wake up slowly by bit. She started to be able to talk. She started to be able to remember me. But she had no control over her physical body. And then she got to the point where she could sit by herself, and then she could feed herself.
Wow.
And then she started to be able to talk. And as she came back to me, I just developed a program and tried to stay one step ahead of her. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physio, I'm not anything. But
Did you use CBD oils by any chance?
Yes,
you
I did.
Because it's used for now, hypoxia and stroke treatment.
Yep, she's still on those. I imported drugs out of America. I played doctor, basically.
Have you heard about psychedelic therapy for brain injury?
No, I have nootropic, but we'll talk about definitely. If you've got anything, I'm into learning.
I can certainly put you in the point in the right direction. As I said, Fetterman's book, there's a whole range of different books out there, but what they've discovered with psychedelics, especially on a microdose level, is it releases 5-HT2TA.
Yeah, yep, I know what that is.
Which releases BDNF, which is brain-derived nootropic factor, and glutamate.
Yep.
And so the BDNF acts like miracle grow, and they actually they theorize and they believe, and there could be some evidence out there, but it's probably anecdotal, that it actually encourages the production of new neurons. It's like, it was described by Albert Hoffman, the originator, as miracle grow for the brain.
Wow.
And so there are early studies out there that you can find that where psychedelic therapy has been used to treat stroke, to treat hypoxia and other forms of brain injury because of its ability not just to produce new neural networks, but here's the cool part. It disrupts what's called the default mode network. And the default mode network is basically your neurons wired together in a particular way. And that's the way you think, it's the way you view the world. And what happens is it actually suspends your default mode network and gets other neurons connecting. So it encourages neuroplasticity. So it encourages new neurons to start communicating to one another, which actually gets different parts of the brain active, which creates new insights, new thoughts, new behaviors.
Oh my God, I've got to see. I've got to learn about this.
And it's perfect for addictive behaviors, compulsive behaviors, because it literally disrupts the pattern of the way you think.
The reinforcement of those same parts.
Exactly.
Oh man, I mean, I'm absolutely into this
research.
stuff.
My thought is always, and you're a student first, practitioner second. Do the learning, do the research
and
first.
I'm not waiting for freaking 30 years of clinical trials either.
I get you.
We'll be dead.
Yeah. Well, I've got 3 brain injuries. I don't know if you probably know my story.
Yeah.
I've got a few brain injuries myself, and I wasn't going to sit there and wait for the medical community to come and serve me. I was trying to get hyperbaric treatment when I had my stroke, and I was like, well, no, and it was very difficult to get. So when I was in the US, I'd get it in Santa Monica.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it was very difficult to get over here. So
so you know all about it. You do. Yeah. Hey, we've definitely got to talk about that because I want to take Mum to the next level. So I mean, the upshot of
so you still have the hyperbaric at home?
Yeah. I've got it.
And you still got the hyperbaric.
I actually opened a clinic, and then because I wanted other people to have it. And then I've ended up selling the clinic because I couldn't run so many businesses, with just me. And so, but I've still got one of the chambers and I still put Mum in it and I still use it myself.
You use it yourself for recovery?
Yeah, and anyone else, my family.
And what have you noticed, apart from the the rehab with mum. What have you noticed from a recovery perspective using the hyperbaric?
It's super powerful, but you need enough treatments. And what I have is a mild hyperbaric chamber.
Okay.
So I don't have the big medical grade one like she had for the first 33
Is it like
treatments.
the plastic canvas reinforced one?
Yeah. So it's a blow up inflatable. So our one goes to 1.5 atmospheres, which is perfect for brain injury. Now for wounds and stuff, it would be better if it went to 2.2, 2.5, but you can't do that with a mild hyperbaric. You have to have the medical grade facility and the oxygen and all the rest of it. But basically what it does is it hyper-oxygenates the body. And I mean, when I did races at altitude, like I did a 222k race over the 2 highest passes in the world, over the Himalayas, and in preparation I had this hypoxico tent that took a part of the oxygen out of the air, and I slept in it every night and tried to adapt, and I ended up with a brain concussion, and because I listened to my ex-husband when he said turn it up to 6,500. Never listen to your ex-husband.
Under any circumstances. Unless I'm your ex-husband.
The moral of the story was he nearly killed me.
Wow.
So I ended up with a massive brain concussion and infections right throughout the body. So I knew what the power of the opposite was. Yeah, okay. You know, and having been at altitude 3 times in, different expeditions and stuff, I knew what it did. And so that's why I was like, hey, this makes sense to me. So I've got to get her access to it. Now, Mum is 3 years into this journey, and Mum's reading, writing, walking, talking. She's got her full driver's license back. She's fully functioning. She's still slow walking. Her balance is we're still working on that. But this is for a person who they said would never ever do anything again.
Who's going to be under care for life.
This to them because and that's why I'm writing her book, because I want. Mum was lucky that she is the type of person who will do whatever I say. I mean, at the beginning she didn't have a clue what was going on, but later on she's taken up the fight. So she's a stubborn and, she's never been an athlete, but she's got that, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Yeah. I'll take whatever pill you give me, I'll do whatever to get back.
It seems like there is a bit of a family trait here, because you and I think they kind of accidentally left this out, you're an ultra marathon athlete with severe asthma.
Yeah. So, I was born I was diagnosed, I think, at a year and a half old or so. And I really struggled with my asthma through my childhood years, especially in and out of hospital and so on. So I've got a very small lung capacity, a very low VO2 max. I don't have, and that's what I say, anybody can do this. Yep. I could not go fast. So, you put me in a local 10K race, or I might be in the middle if I'm lucky. But you put me in a 200k race and I'll just keep chugging. I'm a tractor, not a Ferrari. You know?
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I did deserts, because it's hot, dry climates, So, but the last few years I did stuff in the Himalayas just because I like to push outside the
You like to go outside the box.
And it certainly pushed my limit.
So you've got quite an incredible journey happening right now, haven't you?
Yeah. This is the other. So for years my husband, I'm remarried to a wonderful man. He's a fireman. And
good blokes.
He's a very good bloke, and he's just absolutely lovely. And for years we've been trying to have children, and obviously I've done permanent kidney damage. I've had tumours in my lady bits, and like a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now, I started having massive bleeding and so on. So they said I had to have a hysterectomy, and I was still trying, even though I'm very old. I was still trying to have a kid, so I just don't give up. So they said, you've got to die because you have to go. I had to be in hospital.
When you say you're very
week.
old, how old are you again?
50.
50. Okay. Let's redefine old.
Redefine.
Because you're mature. You're very mature young. There we go. How's that?
Yeah, and you know what I do? I sit in my head and I actually tell myself on a day-to-day basis, I'm 30.
Well, you don't look 50. I'll tell you right now, you do not look 50.
You have to say that, really, don't you?
No, I don't have to fucking say anything. This is my show. I can say what the fuck I want.
No, but
so you've been trying. You had to have the hysterectomy.
Well, they told me I had to, and I said nah. And for a year, I was in and out of hospital because I had to have blood transfusions every week because I was just bleeding so badly, like too much information. But in other words, they told me I needed it, or you're going to die. And I said, no, I found another way. And I got on top of it, and I didn't need a hysterectomy, but I still didn't get to have the baby. So then we lost one. We got lost one at 12 weeks, which was devastating at the age of 46. And so I'd almost given up, but not quite. And then this year I went in the magazine, Women's Day, and I said, I'm looking for a surrogate mum. And so one of the girls that I was coaching, he said, oh, I'll do it. And so she's now 5 months pregnant.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we're going to be parents. And me at 50. I'm scared shitless, to be fair.
Should be. Oh, you should
Thanks,
be.
mate.
But honestly, you're clearly excited for the right reasons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My husband will be a wonderful dad.
You'll be a wonderful mum.
I'll probably be a real hard-ass mum, but, you know.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you, like, what have you learnt from your parents that you think you're either going to do because you know that's an important part, or maybe do differently?
Yeah, I'm still working on that because
Yep.
I'm scared now. Like, you know, being responsible, as you well know, for a little one can be life-changing.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't want to make the mistakes or stuff that happened to me. But by the same token, when you mollycoddle a child, it's going to turn out spoiled. So sometimes hardship is a good thing.
Well,
I don't know.
It's knowing the balance. And, you know, the more I learn about child psychology, the more, in fact, I am in shock of what creates resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, honestly, because I used to think very much like you, in order to build a strong children, they need to have a little bit of...
Yeah.
And that is an aspect of it. But one of the things that I've discovered through my own research in child psychology is, in order to build strong, you know, independent adults, you have to create very safe environments for children. And children need to feel safe in order to develop independence.
Yeah, emotionally safe.
Emotionally safe,
Yeah.
physically safe, you know, psychologically safe. And, you know, I think old school mentality, parenting style, we never took that into consideration.
No.
If a child was melting down, we'd give them a hard time and send them to their room. You know, if they were having a melting down, we didn't go, oh, it's okay. We'd say, here's a teaspoon of cement, you know, harden the fuck up.
Yeah, that's different.
And one of the things that I'm now learning is the importance of when you know, how a child's brain actually develops fundamentally determines how healthy they are as an adult.
Yep.
And it's important for us as parents, because I'm a bit of a hard ass like you, but I've had to learn, you know, for me, one of the greatest things, and I've got a little bit of a feeling this is going to be very similar for you, by being a parent, it's given me the opportunity to parent myself in the way that I wanted to be parented.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's been incredibly cathartic.
Yeah.
But it's also been really fucking scary because you see those old patterns of mum and dads coming out.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, hang on, that's
This
not
isn't
me.
good. Yeah.
But then you start to realize, where did they get it from? And you start to go, hang on, maybe we can break the cycle, you know, and do something differently.
I think you're very wise. I know I'm an open book on this. I really don't know which way to get, you know. I'll deal with the challenges they come, I suppose.
Oh, you will. But look, if we can help, there's a great book, and I recommend this to any parent, new or old parent out there. It's called Discipline Without Damage.
Yep.
By Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, one of the world's top child psychologists, and it just really helps you understand how a child's brain develops, how a child's brain works when it's under stress, and how our most important role is to make them feel safe, but most importantly, give them a demonstration of what it looks like to regulate pain. Give them a demonstration of what it looks like to regulate stress and emotion when times are difficult.
Yep.
Because when their world is going to shit, they look to us and they go like, and if they look at us and we're going, they're like, okay, nothing's fucking safe.
No, I'm in
Whereas
danger.
they're losing their shit.
Yeah.
And they can look at us and no matter what happens, they can go, oh, well, mum's actually okay.
Yeah, I can calm down.
I can calm down.
I'm all right.
It's okay.
Oh, that
She's
makes
my
sense.
rock. She's my center. So when the world is a little bit topsy-turvy, there's got to be one person I can lean on who's not topsy-turvy.
Yeah.
And that demonstrates them how to regulate.
Well, then I probably need to be like my mum. If I'm like her, I'll be fine.
Well, you'll find a balance, I'm sure. You know,
Yeah.
you'll be the
Less like Dad.
perfect mum that you need to be, you know, to give your child, you know, what's required. But a guy said to me the other day, great quote. He said, you know, the time is now to pass down wisdom, not wounds. You know, because
Beautiful.
No kidding. Right? It wasn't mine. I wish I could claim it. So what? You're going to have a baby. We've got 4 months to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of vocal tension there.
Yeah,
a little bit excited.
Yeah. But nervous, that's for sure.
So do we know if it's a boy or a girl yet?
Well, we think it looks like a boy on the 12-week scan, so
Okay.
we're yet to have the next one. So it's my husband's like jumping up and down, going, "I'm going to have a little fireman." He's got a little fireman outfit already. I'm like, "Oh God, here we go."
Every kid wants to be a fireman. That's awesome. So what's next for you, Lisa? Like you've got the baby coming. You've got another book coming.
Yeah, so I'm still working with mum
Yep.
every day, all day. So she's coming out over here. This is the first time I've left her for 3 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's how highly I value you
Oh,
and
thank
being on your
you.
show. Like, seriously, I really wanted to come meet you.
Thank you so much.
And she said she'd be good while I was away. She'd
Yeah.
do her job. She'd do her discipline. So I'm the police. Say I'm the fun police. I'll be ringing up and go, "Have you done this? Have you had your green smoothie today? Have you done your training?"
Yeah, right.
But so mum's still very much the centre of the focus, and obviously baby's going to come into that. But business is my world, and staying fit in a different way though.
Yeah.
Now I love CrossFit type workouts.
Yeah, right.
And full
Because
body
you look like you've got
workouts.
more muscle now.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do have a lot more muscle.
Yep.
Just because I'm loving the gym and I'm loving the change, and I I've stopped doing the long distance running because I actually was working. We do something called epigenetics as part of our coaching programs.
Yeah, right.
And I found out I was working against my genetics. I was like, I should be doing short, sharp, high intensity workouts, and that's where I'm actually healthiest. And I'm like, man, I've worked against my genetics my whole life, if you like. And yeah, you can do it, but I feel healthier, actually stronger, fitter on less.
I encourage everyone to get their epigenetic profile done.
Have you done it?
Yeah, I just had it done recently.
And what's interesting? 360.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, that's what we.
So you do the coaching with that. So you know Cam.
Yeah. Right. He's been on my podcast. Yeah. He's writing for my book.
Cam's actually doing. I've got a consultation with him later today. But what's interesting is it took me 46. I say 40. Fuck, how old am I? 44 years for me to naturally work out what my body required. But like you, I am just not made for distance. No. But I used to try so hard when I was young.
Welcome to my world.
But I now look, and because you're an endomorph, is that right?
No, I'm a activator, which is a mesomorph, so very muscular.
Yeah, right. That's
body
it.
type.
Mesomorph. That's it. I'm a diplomat.
Yeah. Oh, you're a diplomat. Yeah. Like my husband. Yeah.
Right.
Well, you should be good at endurance then.
No. I'm coming up towards the activators. Is it the activator side?
I'm not sure. Around the other side.
Is it around the other side? Well, anyway, I've only just had it done, so I'm still learning. I'm learning how to walk. But I should be training like in the middle of the day, short, sharp bursts. Yeah, because I suck at anything endurance. Yeah, not
well,
my thing.
The funny thing is, so do I, and I'm really good at the weight training.
That's crazy.
Body, and I feel healthier. I feel stronger, and I've done major damage to my kidneys, so I didn't want to end up on dialysis. So I stopped doing the ultras, and of course, I didn't have 30 hours a week anymore to dedicate to training because of Mum.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that, and that's fine. I've done 25 years of it. And what else am I going to do?
So what's the name of the book you've got coming out?
Relentless.
Relentless.
Yeah, and I've got 2 other books, Running Hot and Running to Extremes. But Relentless is probably out in about 3 months' time, and it's teaching the principles that I use to apply, and like why did Mum beat the odds? Why did she come back? How did I do it? Like not this do step 1, step 2, but more the attitude that I took,
the psychology,
the way the medical system works, and the holes in the system, and get the pharmaceutical companies and all that sort of crap. Go into briefly in the story, but it's more about taking control yourself. Because I had a couple of books that were real guides to me. There's a book that you would love, Dr. Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changes Itself.
Oh, great book.
Yeah. Well, that was my guiding light, because I understood that neuroplasticity is a real thing, that even a 77-year-old lady can experience this change, and so my encouragement to people who have brain injuries or who've had strokes or concussions or whatever is to keep fighting and not give up and find your own way, because the medical system won't give you the answers that you need to have, and that's pretty much across the board.
That's so powerful.
They're good at breaking, if you've got a broken leg,
great for trauma.
Very
if
good
you need
for trauma.
surgery, if you need to be put back together,
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
But as far as chronic illness goes or things like this, it's look outside the box.
Oh, I love that. What a great way to finish. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, that comes from my mum too. I remember standing at the start line of the run through New Zealand, which was 2,250 kilometres, and I was trying to do like 500 k's a week, and it was the biggest thing I'd ever done distance-wise in such a short period. And I hadn't really thought, because I was so busy preparing and getting everything ready and all the blah blah. And I was standing on the start line and had a physical panic attack, and I went over to my mum and had a big bawling session, as you do, away from the crew. And I said, "Mum, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm freaking out. It's 2,000. How am I going to do this?" And she said to me, the best piece of advice was, don't look at the 2,200, look at that first power pole up there. That's all you've got to do right now. Get to that first power pole, look to getting through the first half an hour. We'll worry about the rest later. And that's really some great advice. Break it down into small, manageable chunks. Yes, have a big goal, a big, scary, hairy goal out there, but then break it down, and I know you teach this in your stuff too, I've been learning, break it down into manageable size chunks of what can you do today, what action step can you take right now that's going to get you closer, and don't look at that big goal every day, because you'll just be overwhelmed
it's
and
crushing
not be able
sometimes.
to cope. Totally.
Yeah.
It is, and the same in business, like I've got what did you say the other day? I watched one of your videos. You have your big yearly 78, 80 things on your list that you want to do this year, and then break it down into quarters, then break it down into weeks, then break it down into days.
But first things first, have your mission. What are you trying to do in 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, start at the top.
Have your mission and then break it down from there.
That's it, reverse engineer it.
Yep. And then grind away.
Lisa, this has been so enjoyable. We're going to definitely have to get you back. Lisa Tamati, I got that right, didn't I?
Yeah, it's
Tamati.
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 It's pretty good, mate.
Lisa Tamati from Kia ora, New Zealand. From Hello, New Zealand. That's terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Lisa Tamati on Unstoppable. Lisa, thank you so much for coming down.
And if anyone wants to find out about me,
yes, where can we find out about
please, hop over. I've got a running coaching company. I've got a body
what is
transformation.
It? Give us
so Running Hot Coaching.
Yep, runningHotCoaching.com.
Yeah, and lisatamati.com is where all my programs reside.
Tamati.
ATI, yeah.
And your books?
Running Hot,
yeah.
Running to Extremes, and the new one coming out shortly is Relentless. And I'd love to hear if anyone's got any questions or anything. Give me a yell or hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah, what's your Instagram?
Just at Lisa Tamati. Yeah.
At Lisa Tamati. Yep. Lisa, you are unstoppable. You're the epitome of unstoppable. Thank you so much for coming in. Great to have you over.
Thanks, mate. It's awesome.
Hey everybody, it's Kerwin Rae here, your host from Unstoppable. And in today's episode, we interviewed the incredible Lisa Tamati. Now, in this episode, Lisa talked to us about her pregnancy, that she was having surrogated through another woman. And I'm here to let you know with great sadness that Lisa's baby Joseph unfortunately didn't make it. We are in close communication with Lisa and supporting her and her family through this tough time. She's a fighter, as you know, as you would have seen from this podcast. But I thought it appropriate to share this news with you so that you can perhaps reach out yourself and send a bit of love her way. I'm sure you could imagine in times like this, things can feel tough, but I couldn't think of anyone tougher to be dealing with a situation like this than Lisa. Lisa, our love is with you, our thoughts are with you, and we're here for you anytime you need us. Big love to you, sister.